So in this video, we're going to be looking at the systemic and pulmonary circuits. So this is the pathway that blood takes not only through the heart, but also through your entire body. Now, we're not going to detail the pathway through any specific arteries and veins unless they are actually major blood vessels associated with the heart itself. So once the blood leaves the heart, we're just going to talk about the general path that it takes. But I will go through a detailed mapping of how blood goes through the heart itself. This should be completed after you've already looked at the lesson that is associated with this material. Okay, so we need to just pick a starting point. This is a cycle that blood takes. So anywhere you start, you will always end up back in the same spot that you started in. So I'm going to start within the systemic circuit. This is talking about blood that is already left the heart and is going to body cells other than the lungs. So let's just pick a spot here. I'm going to start up here where my cursor is, and we're going to be looking at blood that is leaving the upper body, so maybe coming down from your brain. Anything that is in blue is deoxygenated blood, meaning that the blood has already been delivered to the body cells, unloaded its oxygen to the cells, and then obtained the carbon dioxide produced during cellular respiration from the cells that just received the oxygen. So this is deoxygenated blood that is carrying on the red blood cells carbon dioxide. So this deoxygenated blood is going to return to the heart via the superior and inferior vena cava, where they empty into the right atrium. The right atrium is located, if you're looking at it, on the left side of the heart, because you are referring to these in terms of looking at like down at yourself. So right is left and left is right. So here in the right atrium is where the deoxygenated blood gets returned first. The blood is going to passively pass through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. About 70% of that volume will. The last 30% requires the right atrium to contract. So the right atrium will then contract and force the rest of the blood into the right ventricle. The right ventricle is then going to contract, and it's going to squeeze the blood through the pulmonary artery into the two trunks of the pulmonary artery. So there is the left and right trunks of the pulmonary artery. Now, what makes this artery different from every other artery in your body is this is the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood, because it is sending blood away from the heart towards the lungs to receive oxygen from respiration, from breathing. So blood is going to travel to either the left or right lung. And whenever it enters the lung through the pulmonary artery, it's going to go through the capillaries to those tiny little air sacs that are containing the air that you just breathed in. So you imagine breathing in, all that air fills those air sacs in your lungs, and right there you have tiny little capillaries where oxygen is going to be delivered to the red blood cells, and the red blood cells here that do not have oxygen are going to unload carbon dioxide and pick up that new oxygen. You then exhale and release that extra carbon dioxide, and this now oxygenated blood is going to return to the heart that now contains oxygen. All of this blood is oxygenated now, which is why it's in red. Return to the heart via the pulmonary vein. Just like the pulmonary artery was different, the pulmonary vein is different because this is the only vein in your body that carries oxygenated blood. So the pulmonary vein is going to receive this oxygenated blood into the left atrium now. Just as before, the left atrium is going to deliver its blood down into the left ventricle through the mitral, also called the bicuspid valve. The left ventricle is then going to contract and force this oxygenated blood through the aorta, which is the biggest blood vessel in your body, also the biggest artery in your body. And from the aorta, you have all of this branching where you have these smaller arteries coming off the aorta that are going to deliver oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. This oxygenated blood is then going to go up through the other systemic circuit into the upper body and also lower body. and the whole cycle starts over. So this oxygenated blood is going to unload its oxygen into the body cells, pick up carbon dioxide, and return this deoxygenated blood into the inferior and superior vena cava. The blood is then delivered into the right atrium, and this whole process starts all over again. Now, what this doesn't show you is that both the atrium and ventricles on the left or right side are actually contracting at the same time. So this is a cycle that's happening in both directions at the same time, but it is useful just to track like one blood cell through the entire cycle at once.